What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. You guys already know what it is. It's draft season all year long, and today we have a 2024 mock draft in store here for the Chicago Bears. Now, before any of you guys jump the gun and point out my Adam Thielen, Minnesota Vikings background, look, and I've had comments like this in the past where like, oh, you're a Vikings fan, you're just trying to sabotage the team. Whatever I choose to do in this video is irrelevant to what the team does in real life, which is what really matters and what really counts. And so, for me, there is no incentive to sabotage the team. If you guys think I'm trying to do that as a rival fan, I'm just trying to put together a good YouTube video and get some subscribers, okay? That's as real as it gets. So, just had to put that disclaimer out there before any of you guys start typing in the comment section. Now, before we get into the actual mock draft, let's take a look at the depth chart so we can take a look at the needs of this team. Now, Justin Fields has been the talk of the town really for the Chicago Bears, not only because of how well he's played recently, but also because of what his future might look like with the team. And now, this is coming from someone who was an advocate for Justin Fields in the 2021 NFL Draft. I had him as the number 2 quarterback in that class behind Trevor Lawrence. The reality of it is, I don't think he's good enough, and this is someone who I thought was uber athletic, who would be able to put it together with his arms and his legs, and that just hasn't really been the case. We saw flashes this past season, and it's just still not enough. After 3 years, I don't think we've seen enough to say, hey, we can give Justin Fields this extension and we're willing to give him another year to try and prove himself, especially when you have the number 1 overall pick and you have a very talented quarterback class. That is the 2024 class. And so I'm going to let you know right now, spoiler alert, we're going with a quarterback. I know that's been the case for most mock drafts, but just in case some of you guys were still on the fence or maybe on the side of Justin Fields, I don't think it matches up timeline-wise for the Bears or for Justin Fields, to go with that route. So we are going to take a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick. Our running back situation looks great. Herbert, if he can stay healthy, is going to be a great running back along with Roschon Johnson. So you have a good duo. That's pretty much what the modern NFL backfield ideally looks like. DJ Moore was a tremendous acquisition, considering what he did for Justin Fields this year, but also just what he does for this offense as a whole. To think that you got him and the number 1 overall pick in the same trade is just an absolute fleece. A great job by Ryan Poles in that trade. I don't think he could have projected it to go this well, but here we are as it stands. And Darnell Mooney and Tyler Scott, these are 2 guys that I'm not super confident about in your wide receiver 2-3 spots. And also Darnell Mooney is also a free agent. I don't think they're going to bring him back, especially in a wide receiver class that has not only quantity, but quality as well. We're going to look to address that position in the draft. But DJ Moore is an absolute blessing to this team. Cole Kmet is another good receiver. He's really the number 2 receiving option on this team right now. Kari Blasingame, former Minnesota Viking, had to throw that out there. And then Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Nate Davis, Darnell Wright. Those are 4 solid offensive linemen and young offensive linemen, that be it too, that I think you can really work with in the future. And so I really like the youth and the talent of this offensive line. It's just that center spot with Dan Feeney or Lucas Patrick that you're going to have to address. There are a couple of guys in this draft that we could potentially look to take, but again, it's got to be the right value. It's got to be at the right spot. And so all of that is TBD at this moment in time. Defensively, Montez Sweat was a great acquisition for this team. They gave up a 2nd-round pick for a premier pass rusher, and so I think that is tremendous value in that sense. You have 2 very young interior defensive linemen in Gervon Dexter and Zach Pickens that you took in the day 2 part of the draft last year, so I do not anticipate this team to go with that position at all this year. Justin Jones could be returning if they choose to bring him back in free agency, and Andrew Billings, I believe, is on this team no matter what, just because of how the salary cap situation looks for his situation. So you really have to address that opposite edge rusher spot, right? I mean, heck, if you could have two really solid edge rushers, that would be phenomenal. I know Montez Sweat is already a huge win in itself, but you can't have DeMarcus Walker starting on the other side. And so we are definitely going to look to upgrade that position in the draft if it presents itself as well. Our linebacker group looks really solid with Edwards and Edmonds being two free agent pickups from a year ago, and then Jack Sanborn is a really good rotational piece. Not really good, but he's serviceable for the position and the role that he plays on this defense. So I'm satisfied with that unit as well. And the secondary is still very young, right? Jalen Johnson put together a phenomenal season in 2023. He's going to get paid. I'm expecting him to get paid $20+ million this offseason, and it should be with the Chicago Bears. If they let him walk, that is going to be a huge mistake, and you're going to have a disgruntled fan base. So I highly anticipate them re-signing him. And Kyler Gordon, Tyreek Stevenson, these guys are not elite caliber cornerbacks by any means, but they are serviceable enough, and I think they do a solid job considering their youth at the position. And then Jaquan Brisker and Eddie Jackson round off that secondary group. So I feel pretty good about the defense for the most part. It's just that edge rusher spot that I really want to address if it presents itself, like I said. That quarterback and wide receiver spot are also two glaring needs on this team if we want to see any progression. I mean, what is the goal here for the Chicago Bears? You obviously want to leave this draft with a franchise quarterback, one that's going to be the first 4,000-yard passer. And hopefully this really just transforms the team, because they've just been plagued with, average quarterback play for the longest time. It's time for a change, and they really need someone to step up and, be a difference maker, for this franchise, which they really have never had. Now, before we get into the mock draft, which we're going to do 3 rounds, I feel like people, really pay attention, up to day 2, and then day 3, it's like you have random people announcing the selections. And so I'm not doing rounds 4 through 7, but if you guys want to see me do that in the future, I would be more than happy to do a full 7-round mock draft. But as it stands right now, we're still very early in the draft process. I mean, free agency hasn't happened yet. The combine hasn't happened. And so it's still really hard to project where a lot of these players are going to go and who makes the most sense for every team, just because of how many moving parts are still in play. Before we continue into this mock draft, I do have a full off-season rundown for the Chicago Bears already on the channel, where we talk about guys who we want to re-sign, guys that we want to go out for in free agency, how we're going to manage the cap space. And we also do a mock draft in that video as well. If you're interested in that, or if you're interested in anything related to the NFL draft, this is definitely going to be the channel for you. So consider subscribing. I've had small goals, but you know what? We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so help me out. I would greatly appreciate it. But let's get into this mock draft. We do have some trade offers here, but I'm someone who firmly believes that if you have someone on the board that you really like, the quality of the player is better than the quantity of picks that you're going to end up getting. And that's the situation that we're in right here with the number 1 overall pick. We are going to select Caleb Williams out of USC. Now, we might be experiencing some prospect fatigue here, and that's a term that I've heard come up recently with guys like Caleb Williams, or even guys like Kool-Aid McKinstry, where we've been hyping them up for so long that now we're starting to get tired of hearing the same thing, and we're starting to nitpick these players. Now, don't get me wrong, Caleb Williams does have some flaws in his game, right? We take a look here with PFF Premium Analytics here, and we have the pressure grade at 39.1. And, the game that really stood out the most, and we can see here, just on the listing of the games, it was that Notre Dame game, and that is completely fair to say. That game, he threw 3 interceptions. He looked horrendous under pressure, right? I mean, the pocket was collapsing. He was throwing off his back foot. He was making some very suspect throws. And so that's the thing with Caleb Williams, right? If there's any flaw in his game, you want to see him play in structure more and just take care of the football when he's under pressure. You're not going to be able to play hero ball down in and down out. And so you want to see Caleb Williams just calm down a little bit more, when he's forced to stay in the pocket. But aside from that, right, you talk about the accuracy, you talk about the arm strength, the improvisational skills, just the overall feel for the game, his pocket presence. There's a lot of things in his game that are not teachable, right? And you're just not going to get that out of every quarterback. This is not a natural ability. Caleb Williams just has it all, and it's understandable why he is basically the unanimous number one quarterback in this entire draft class, and some would even say the number one prospect in this draft as well. And so I'd be so excited to have Caleb Williams as my quarterback, as any GM, head coach, or offensive coordinator. And so we're going to stop the dilly-dallying and go with Caleb Williams. I think he's a phenomenal prospect, and we will choose him to be our franchise quarterback. Now, we're going to have to keep an eye on what some of these other teams do and what quarterbacks are also still on the board, because now we have a situation where we have to trade away Justin Fields, and there are certainly a handful of teams that could use Justin Fields. So there are still guys, and I think these three guys in Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and JJ McCarthy are the three guys that have round one buzz that still could potentially go in between now and maybe the early to mid second round. So we are going to take a look at that. Now we do have trade options here, and this is where, I'm more willing to take a look. But we have the Saints, the Packers, the 49ers, and the Browns all interested in trading up. I'm going to take a look at what we have on the board. Now, Brock Bowers would be incredible to have here, but I just don't think it makes a ton of sense considering that we already have Cole Kmet and there are other needs on this team. I would love to pick up someone like Dallas Turner. He is my number one edge rusher right now in the class. He's also a top 5 prospect for me. I haven't taking a look at the draft in a full scale, but very early on, what I'm trying to say is I love Dallas Turner. Tremendous edge rusher, and I think provides a ton of upside just because of the speed, the athleticism, the power that he plays with. A very well-rounded edge rusher coming out of Alabama. And so, as I look at the board here, a lot of talented players, of course, still being in the top 10, but I think I am going to go with Dallas Turner here. Someone else that I really like is Laiatu Latu, but he's also 2 years older and does have more of an injury history. So we are going to go right here, and I want to make sure, because I don't know if the pause button's here. I'm going to just adjust my face cam a little bit. We got to make sure to pause the draft at the beginning of the second round. Now, I don't anticipate the Bears to get a first round pick for Justin Fields, which is why I'm going to stop at a second. But we are going to go here, address that other edge rusher spot, especially with Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors, actually, I didn't even notice that. Malik Neighbors went before Marvin Harrison, but the top 3 wide receivers are off the board, and so I feel more comfortable taking Turner here with that selection. So we are going to pause this thing right now. Okay, perfect timing. Look at me. Let's take a look at how the rest of the first round unfolded. Again, we talked about wanting a quarterback, a wide receiver, and an edge rusher. We're doing a great job of addressing our needs right now without reaching for any of these guys. Let's take a look at how the rest of the draft unfolded. Bo Nix goes at number 12 to the Denver Broncos. They desperately need a quarterback now that Russell Wilson's not going to be there anymore. And then I do not believe another quarterback goes off the board after that. And so the one that I'm really surprised with, especially with the way that this simulator works, PFF simulator, is Michael Penix. So Michael Penix could be going somewhere in this range. Now, worst comes to worst, right? And we're talking about teams like the Patriots. We're talking about the Falcons. They desperately need quarterbacks. And so maybe we try to trade them to one of those two teams. If not, I'm taking a look at the Steelers. The Steelers are another team who desperately need a quarterback and is a team that we're going to be willing to trade with because they're in the AFC, just in case Justin Fields pops up, but I don't think it's happening. But that could be a team that we look to trade with as well, who desperately needs a quarterback and might not necessarily be in the range of one at the current moment. So resume, pause. There goes Michael Penix. Okay, so what we're going to try and do here is we're going to try and trade Justin Fields to the Atlanta Falcons, because this is the next team that's coming up that could use a quarterback and doesn't really have one. So we're going to call Atlanta real quick. We're going to say, hey, we want to give you Justin Fields because you really want another season with Desmond Ridder? The answer is no. Okay, so we're going to ask for their second round pick. Now, this is going to be accepted without any thought, but let's try and get more. Can we get their third round pick as well? Maybe. That would be interesting, actually. So we have a 50% chance that this gets accepted right here. This is our last pick and Justin Fields for their second and third. Let's offer the trade. Let's see. No. So they do not accept that trade. Let's see. Maybe we throw in 122. This has a 61% chance. We'll throw in 201 right there as well. And bam. Okay, so that trade is accepted. We get rid of Justin Fields and we get a second, a third, and I believe a 6th or a 7th round pick. And we're into the second round now. So now here we sit at number 43. Now we still need a wide receiver, like I mentioned, and because of how much depth is in this wide receiver class, there are a couple of guys in here that I still like. Adonai Mitchell, I feel like underrated prospect in this board, not by much, but I do think he is a late first round guy just because of the size and the speed that he presents, and is also a very effective deep threat as well. You can see his analytics and stats right here, but 6'4", nearly 200 pounds. Love the build of Adonai Mitchell. Jermaine Burton and Xavier Legette are also two guys that I think are very promising as well, but Mitchell is a guy that I think very highly of, and is kind of getting buried in a very talented wide receiver class. And so we are going to go with Adonai Mitchell here, and we're going to go all the way to the third round to finish off this mock draft. This is going great so far, and I really have little to no complaints. Wow, okay. So, okay, we're not going to dilly-dally with this. Javon Bullard is someone that I have as a first-round guy. I mean, you're talking about a rangy safety who can cover a ton of ground and hits as hard, if not harder, than Jaquan Brisker, a guy who already exists on this team. So if you have like two hard-hitting safeties in the back, and keep in mind, right, this is a potential replacement for Eddie Jackson because he is getting up there in age, but the amount of field that he can cover in the backfield, Javon Bullard, I think, would be a solid option here as a third round pick. And again, I have him with a first round grade. I'm not a scouting expert by any means, but I'd be pretty happy if Javon Bullard was on my team, and you would have, like I said, a hard hitting combo in the backfield. Okay, and with our final pick here, what do we want to do here? Roman Wilson's a very intriguing one, but I do want to see Tyler Scott play. Right, still very young player. Man, maybe we go out and try and look for an interior offensive lineman. It doesn't necessarily have to be a center like a Cedric Van Pran, although that would be pretty interesting. But we could go with a guy here like Cooper Beebe. He was someone that I was very high on. He was, considering declaring for the draft last year, and I did some studying on him, and I felt very confident about his game. Comes back to Kansas State, I think plays very well again. So we could look to take him, maybe Cedric Van Pran, who is more of a natural center. I think that's what we're going to go and do here, okay? I understand that the board says that he should be taken way lower. The circumstances that we're in, okay, we don't have any picks after this because we're only doing 3 rounds, but I do think it would be important for this team nonetheless to address that center position. And Van Pran is another guy that I really liked who could have declared last year and decided to return back to Georgia. So we're going to take Cedric Van Pran. I don't care what their board says because my board looks a little bit different. So that is what our mock draft looks like here very early on for the Chicago Bears here in 2024. We get our grades here, an overall draft grade of an A here for the Chicago Bears. Let me know what you guys think about this mock draft in the comment section below. And most importantly, if you guys enjoyed this content, if you guys think I did a good job and want to see more Bears mock draft content, consider subscribing. Again, like I said, on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And until then, I will see you guys all later. Peace.